Okay, what we're going to talk about today is what happens if you mess up the importing of an MTS video system. So for instance, you've got Sony NX Cam, which is one set that I know Sony's use the AVCHD a lot. And there are a lot of other manufacturers that use that, and it's a great format. And if you take a look here, we've got here I've got an SD card that I shot. I do believe it was a Sony NX Cam actually that I shot it on. And if you take a look, I've got the file structure. And in my previous demonstration about importing MTS files into Final Cut Pro, this is the key part that you have to keep. And if one of these folders is gone, then it's, well, the DCIM's maybe not quite as important, but you know, all the others, that's when you're really going to mess things up. And so we're going to talk about what were to happen if all you had was just these MTS files. There is a way around this. So, you know, for instance, I took this clip here, and I went into Final Cut Pro, okay, and I can go and do log and capture just like you're supposed to do. Oops, not log and capture, my bad, sorry. Log and transfer, old habits die hard. Log and transfer, and it's automatically going to see your SD card, and it's going to add in your clips. And I've already converted this clip, so I drag this down here, and it takes it and it converts it into the format that Final Cut Pro can see. And I have that in a folder here, just for these examples. I put them all in a different folder. And here you can see, here's my log and transfer original. So I'm going to double click this and open it in QuickTime. I'm going to take a look at it. It's pretty big. I'm going to size it down just a little bit here. It's 1080p. It's a nice signal. I was filming this in my classroom actually. You know, you can see it's really high quality. If I hit Command I can take a look at, with the inspector, what we've got going on here as far as my settings. And you can see that when you log and capture, Final Cut Pro saves your video files. It converts them from the MTS files into Apple ProRes 422. My frame rate was 2997. And this was the part that was really interesting to me, was the data rate. The data rate's around 140 to 150 megabits per second. We're going to use this actually really as a basis for figuring a workaround when we screw up transferring our MTS files. So let's just say something happened and you didn't copy over all the files, or you backed up your SD card, but all you backed up was your MTS files, these guys here, okay? And so all I've got is this original file here, okay? It was clip number 1 MTS. Now I'm using clip number 1 because it's small and it's short and it didn't take a long time to convert. So the problem with this is I can go up in the Final Cut Pro and I can go to log and transfer, and I can try to add a different folder here. And I can navigate to that MTS file, MTS tests, original file, and I can click open, and it's going to give me this error. And a lot of you who are working in Final Cut Pro 7 have probably seen this error. Unsupported media, or has an invalid directory structure. And this is the key part right there. Because that folder doesn't have the entire file structure that the SD card usually has, this is what screws us up. And then it tells you what you need to do. Now that's great if you've got it, but if you don't, you're kind of in trouble. Now the good news is you're not completely, all is not completely lost, let's just put it this way. But I have to leave Final Cut Pro behind, because as of right now with Final Cut Pro 7, there's nothing else you can do. What we're going to do is we're going to use 2 free pieces of software that you can just get off the internet. They're great pieces of software. And we have to use them in conjunction with each other, unfortunately. I wish there was a one-step process for this. We're going to use a program called Handbrake to take the MTS files and convert them to M4Vs. And then we're going to use an application called MPEG Streamclip to take the M4Vs and then convert them into our Apple ProRes files. And the key part here is obviously getting the quality good. Handbrake as a basic application is really meant for ripping files, compressing them, and so the quality that comes out of here is oftentimes not the best. MPEG Streamclip is a little bit more of just a straightforward conversion software that's really meant to convert from AVI to QuickTime or whatever. But the problem is MPEG Streamclip, at least as of now, and I know I've got an old version here, I don't even know if there is a newer version, but MPEG Streamclip, as of now, does not open MTS files. And so you have to do a two-stage conversion system. I'd love it if MPEG Streamclip would actually open MTS files, but as far as I know, it doesn't right now. So we have to convert first with Handbrake, and then we need to convert again with MPEG Streamclip. And once we do that, we'll have a nice big ProRes file that we can load into Final Cut Pro, import, drop on the timeline, and we'll be, you won't need to do any rendering or anything like that in order to actually to record or to edit your videos. So here's what we need to do. The first thing we have to do is we have to hit our source button, and we're going to find our clip. Now, if you've got multiple clips, what you're going to want to do is at the end of this process, instead of hitting start, you're going to want to add to queue. So we'll do that actually. We'll do two. So I'm just going to take them all straight off of the, well, no, we'll just do them from the file, but I'll add to queue and then I'll hit the start button. So here's my original file is my clip1.mts. So I'm going to open that up, and you'll notice that it's only 23.8 megabytes. It's pretty small. And once we convert it, it's going to be pretty big. So the benchmark that I got from some very unscientific testing was about 1.5 megabits per second. You know, when you go back to your the clip as it was from log and transfer, notice it 150 million bits per second. So what we're going to do is so that's like what? That's 1,500,000 kilobits per second, right? It should be, or about that. Did I do the math right? 2 zeros, 3 zeros. Yeah, that should be. So about 100, so 1,500,000 kilobits per second. So what we're going to do then is we're going to set Handbrake to equal that same bit rate, you know, to keep the quality up. Now you may be losing a little bit of hard drive space here, and I realize that this probably isn't, you know, perfectly the exact. You probably don't need to go this high. In fact, I did some tests at 20,000 kilobits per second, and it looked great. A lot of it depends on how much motion you've got in your video. If you've got a lot of motion in your video, the bit rate needs to be higher in order to keep the quality pretty good. I was able to get excellent quality videos at about 20,000 kilobits per second. You might need higher, you might not. But what I found is if you keep the bit rate at the same that the log and transfer files were at, then the file size is actually roughly the same once we're finished with this process. So to me, that means it's good. And when you want to go higher here, if you want to shrink them down a little bit, we can do that in stage 2 with MPEG Streamclip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my, I think when Handbrake starts, usually the default is the constant quality. We're going to click average bit rate, and this is an older version of Handbrake than is out right now, but you can still do the same thing. We're going to make sure our video codec is X264. We're not going to set MPEG 4. 264 is better, at least in my opinion. And we're going to make sure that the 2-pass encoding is checked. I think that's a big thing. You want it to go through your video clip twice, and the reason for that is it goes through, the bit rate is an average bit rate. It can go up or down depending upon how much motion is in the clip, depending upon the number of colors in a clip. And there's a lot of things that it uses in order to do the compression. And so there might be sections of your video that need a little extra compression or a little less compression, a higher bit rate or a lower bit rate. And having it go through once and then go through a second time, it can then identify those areas that needs a little bit or a little less, and it can do a better job. So I'm going to just type in 1, 2, 3s. Wait. Yeah, there. So my bit rate's now at 1,500,000 kilobits per second, okay? That's pretty high. And then what I'll do is, you don't really need to do much else with Handbrake. If the clip is really long, one of the big problems with that is you make sure you have to check large file size. Anything that you expect to be over 4 gigabytes needs to have this checked. If you're not sure, check it. I don't think it will cause any problems if it is smaller and you've checked it anyway. This file is not going to be that. I mean, that would be something that is, you know, this is like a short clip. This is like a minute long or less. So it's going to end up being about 200 megabytes. So it's pretty short. It's like, maybe it's not even that. I don't even remember. How long is it? Oh, it's really short. It's only 8 seconds. So this is a really short clip, 150 megabytes approximately when we're finished with this. So if it's going to be several minutes, it might be a couple gigs. If it's going to be 10 minutes or 20 minutes, it's definitely going to need to be checked there so that you have that. If you don't do that or you forget, the M4V won't open. Just nothing happens. So if you do this and your M4V won't even open in QuickTime, it won't open in anything, chances are you forgot to check the large file size box. So we've got that, and that might be a real kicker for some people, but we'll see. So we've got that all taken care of. I don't like the turbo first pass for this. You know, I leave just 2-pass encoding and just leave it normal. And it's not a big deal to have it turned on, I guess, but I think the quality probably will be a smidge better, maybe, if you just leave it off. And then what I'll do is I'll just add the queue. And there's a queue here in Handbrake. If that's turned off, you need to go to the window and you want to turn on the queue right here, okay? You don't need the activity window on, really. I like to have it on because I just like to see it go. It's just kind of cool to watch, but that's beside the point. So once you've got all your clips added to queue, you just hit, to add another one, you just hit source, and you would find the next clip, you'd open it, and then you make sure your settings are all the same, and then you hit add to queue. And then you'd have a list here, and then you can just hit the start button, and then it's going to go through the thing, and it's just putting it in my account right now. That's the other thing, is you want to hit the browse button, and I think it's better to, let's stop for a second here, cancel current and stop. What I think is better to do is to put them in separate folders. So what I've done here is, you can see this conversion thing. I have my original file in a folder. Then I'm going to have my Handbrake conversions in another folder. And you can see there's 2 there. That's because I did one at 20,000 kilobits per second and the other one at 1.5 million kilobits per second. And then you do your log and transfer. Or no, you don't need that, because obviously if you had that, this whole process would be completely pointless. So I have my Handbrake conversions, and then finally my MPEG Streamclip conversions, which will be our last step. I save them into a separate folder. And then this is basically going to end up becoming your capture scratch for Final Cut Pro, and you can import them straight from this folder. So anyway, I've built my queue. I've selected where I want to put them, so you put them in your Final Cut. You wouldn't want to put them in your Final Cut Pro documents, is kind of what I'm saying. You'd want to put them in a separate file or a folder that's just going to be your Handbrake conversions. So there you go. I hit save, and I like to keep track of what I'm converting them at. So in the name, I'll add 1.5 million kilobits per second. And anything else that I add to it, 2-pass. I just like to put all that into the file name so that if there's ever any issues, I've got it there. I know what I was doing with this file, and it's nice and simple. I already have one in there like that, so I'm going to make it say 1A just so it doesn't write over my original. And then I'll add this to the queue. Now over here in the queue, I've got that in there once before, so I'm just going to delete that. And let's say I've got my list of all these things, I've put them in and hit the start button, and now it's going to start scanning, and then it's going to start compressing the file and converting it to an M4V. And you can see it's pretty fast. but this is an 8-second clip. So if you've got clips that are longer than that, you can see the frames per second, and I'm on an i7 iMac with 8 gigs of RAM here, so it's a pretty decently fast machine, and you see I'm running well below 30 frames per second for the conversion. So this is one of those things that could take all night long. You can speed the process up a little bit by taking your bit rate down. I recommend that you do experimentation with one short clip, and maybe start here, or maybe, like I said, I did one at 20,000 kilobits per second, and it looked great. But this clip doesn't have a lot of motion in it, so maybe you'd need to go up from there. Maybe start 50,000 kilobits per second and go from there. You'll have to experiment for the settings as they would work for you, but the process is about the same. So once you get this done, and it's done combining the file here, the audio and the video, into a single M4V, now you're ready. It says there you go, put down that cocktail, because I'm sure no, I love Handbrake anyway. We'll just leave it alone. So anyway, you can quit Handbrake now. We don't need it open. Save some memory. And now we're going to use MPEG Streamclip. I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel about converting with MPEG Streamclip. But now that we've got these things as M4Vs, and here's the new one that I just did, okay? Now that we've got these things as M4Vs, we can now convert them to ProRes 422 and get them into Final Cut Pro. So I've already gotten these two, and now one of the things that I want to do is, here's my log and transfer original. So this is the original that I had with log and transfer from Final Cut Pro. So that's the original. I'm going to open up my other two here so you can see them. So here's my 20,000 kilobit 2-pass. Okay, I'm going to open that in, oh, it's opening in iTunes, really? Sorry. No, thank you very much. And of course, it's now adding that to my iTunes thing, which is really not what I needed. Quit. There we go. Okay, so I should just right-click. So I'm going to right-click this and open it in QuickTime. Should have known that was going to happen. And if I just kind of put them side by side so we can kind of see a detail of both of them, let's get rid of the info button here. Okay, and you can see, I mean, I've got lots of detail in 20,000 kilobits per second. I don't see any increase in sharpness, in the text. I mean, this is a tough shot right here for 1080p with the fine lines in here and everything, and they look very, very, very similar. And then just for more comparison, let me go, and here's my 1.5 million kilobits per second in QuickTime, and you can just kind of see that. Let's just go, okay. You can just kind of see that combined with the two of them. I see very little difference between the 20,000 kilobits per second and the 1.5 million kilobits per second. I suppose if the clips were fast, lots of action, lots of motion, you might find some differences. I don't know. But they all look the same to me, so I wouldn't worry about them. So I would probably encode this at 20,000 kilobits per second. But again, I think that the bit rate is the key, and that's something that you should experiment with on a shorter clip just to see what looks really good. You just keep increasing that bit rate and make sure you're set to 2 passes and you'll be fine. The last stage is really easy. So that's a good comparison. We can see that. These are M4Vs, so we couldn't import them straight into Final Cut Pro right yet. We have to convert them to our ProRes movie file like this one. So all we've got to do is we go into MPEG Streamclip, and again, you would probably have a list of clips in here. I've only got 2, but what you do is you go to batch list in MPEG Streamclip, and that's going to give you a list where you can drag multiple files into the batch list, and then it's going to pop up here. It's going to ask you to choose a task. We're going to choose export to QuickTime, because the ProRes is basically a QuickTime file. Well, not basically, it is a QuickTime file. And now is where we can put it in our scratch disk. So I can go in here and I can go Final Cut Pro Documents, Capture Scratch, and I can make a new file, and I can just call this computer scene or whatever project you're doing. I'll make a new folder in the Capture Scratch. And now our settings in MPEG Streamclip are pretty straightforward. ProRes 422, and quality at 100%. If your video is interlaced, for some reason you were shooting an interlaced signal, maybe 60i, something like that, and you don't want it to be interlaced in the end, maybe the interlacing is giving you problems, this is the time to check the de-interlace video button right here. That's just an option. I find that MPEG Streamclip does the de-interlacing really well. Compressor does it too, so you can edit interlaced, and then when you are exporting it to whatever your final output would be from Final Cut Pro, you can also add de-interlacing in Compressor. There's a de-interlace filter in Final Cut Pro you can add to your individual clips. There's a whole host of options for that. Personally, I usually do it in the conversion process if I need to, just because I like to. One other quick note is sometimes when I'm converting clips, they give me trouble, and I found that the key is actually to type in the frame rate. So if you're not sure, you can go into your clip here. The frame rate should be the same as it was as the original, but if you open it in QuickTime, okay, and you hit Command I and get your inspector, it's going to give you your frame rates. So your frames per second is 29.97, okay? I can go in there and type that. You shouldn't have to, okay? I mean, you really shouldn't have to. The only time this really becomes an issue is sometimes in Final Cut Pro when you're editing clips, and if you messed up and you shot with different frame rates, you can get yourself in trouble. And then you can go back and reconvert the higher frame rate ones to the lower frame rate or whatever. I mean, there's options there, but we're not really dealing with that right now. But that's just a thing I've noticed sometimes that happens. So I'm not going to de-interlace these. I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm just going to hit to batch. Now, if I was smart, I would have hit the automatic start button before I added my clips to it. I can't now. If you do that, what ends up happening is it starts adding the clips. Sometimes that can take a little while to populate the list. If you do that, it'll basically hit the go button itself and start converting. So you can go get a cup of coffee or you know, whatever. If you don't, you have to sit there and wait for the list to finish, and then you have to manually hit the go button. So I always like to hit the automatic start button before I drag them in. In fact, if I've got a lot of clips and I get to here and I realize I didn't, a lot of times I'll hit cancel, in which cancels the whole thing. I'll drag the clips back in, get back to this screen. After I'll check the automatic start, then I'll drag the clips in a second time, get to this screen, because doing this screen all over again a lot of times is faster than waiting for it to list all the clips and then have to press go. So anyway, I've got it. These all look good. I always like to make sure that my clips are the same size, that I'm expecting, that everything's perfect, and looks good. So I'm going to hit batch, and it's waiting for me to hit go. See, this is 2 clips and it's done. And so I'm going to hit go, and it's going to start compressing them. Now I've already done this, so I'm going to hit stop. And if you take a look here, so now let's take a look. So here is my the file that I did from just from the 20,000 kilobits per second. So let's open this in QuickTime. Come on, right click, thank you. So we're going to open up in QuickTime Player. Here's my 20,000 kilobits per second converted. This is through the 2-stage. So this was from Handbrake to MPEG Streamclip to a ProRes 422. Here's my original from the log and transfer that I was able to do. And you can see basically it's the same quality. So hopefully through this two-step stage process, you're not going to lose any quality, and you can still convert your MTS files if you don't have the file structure. So all of this goes all the way back to this stupid little SD card, which I love them, by the way. It's so much easier than log and capture from a HD DV tape or anything like that, like we used to have to do. But even still, if you didn't copy all these folders over and you just have the MTS files, okay, as a backup, it takes a while. It'll probably take all night, but you will be able to do your conversion process with these free tools available on the internet. Gotta love modern technology. You'll be able to do this two-stage process. You'll be able to get your clips back. You'll be able to convert them, and then they will import straight into Final Cut Pro, nice and simple. So here I can just import my files just to prove to you. So where's my MTS test? Here's my MPEG Streamclip ProRes folder, and here's my 20,000 kilobits per second pass, and go. Now one thing, I just want to warn you, because I'm sure I'll get a comment about this, somebody will import it, and then they'll drop it into the timeline. Yes, thank you. And then they're going to look at it, and it might look kind of crappy here, depending upon your computer. Remember that Final Cut Pro uses an RT rendering system that downgrades the video as you're editing it on the fly so that it can edit in real time. That's what that RT stands for. Final Cut Pro X has a background rendering process that's basically supposed to be a lot better. I know a lot of people love it. I know some people who hate it anyway. They just want to render the old school way like Final Cut Pro 7 does. Either way, you cannot trust the quality of your preview window or your canvas window here. If this looks like crap and you're not sure, right-click on your clip in the browser, say Reveal in Finder, and right-click on this and open it in QuickTime Player and look at it in full quality in QuickTime. This will help you make sure that your video clip really is at the high quality that you would expect from it. If it looks like crap in QuickTime, now you might need to start asking some questions. Did I screw up during the conversion process? What did I do wrong? Those kinds of things could be an issue. But chances are it will look really good in QuickTime and may not look great in Final Cut Pro because it's using that real-time rendering system to be able to allow you to edit on the fly in real time without having to do too much rendering. And you can see here, I can play this. There's no red bars at the top of the timeline, so because it's ProRes 422, I don't have to render. So that's basically it. Just to review really quickly, you've got an MTS file, you don't know where the rest of the file structure is, Final Cut Pro won't help you out. You got to use Handbrake and MPEG Streamclip, two free tools on the internet that have saved my butt so many times it's not even funny. Using this two-stage process, you can get your clips back. You don't have to reshoot or pay somebody lots of money to go and do them for you. All you got to do is do some batch queues and batch processes, and then let your computer run overnight. And you know, it might just take you a couple, many hours worth of conversion, but you'll be able to save your project, and you will be able to get your clips from MTS Clips. And yeah, I breathe a sigh of relief. Whew. So anyway, hope this helps. It's a good process, and I've used it multiple times when my students have forgotten their instructions.